So this is going to be incredibly dry. Just heads up. This is a clinical slash practitioner level information. Okay. And I'm going to speak from some notes that I have here. And what I want you to do is, if you hear yourself, don't panic. Okay. If you hear yourself in one of these expanded versions and there's 10 of them, and don't panic, don't fret about, oh my God, I hear myself in all of these. It's like, yeah, everyone tells me that, and that's okay. Right? This is the deep inner work that you've signed up for. And in the 16-week or the love map version of this, we tackle 2. Sometimes you might be able to squeeze in a 3rd, but it really is in the 12-month work that we look at all of them. Now, they all come up, they all show up, and the 2 most dominant ones are the ones that will impact your relationships, which is why I've designed my protocols the way that I have. Some people are quite satisfied with their life, but their love life is like, oh my God, like what's going on here? Well, it's easy to work out. We're just aiming at the 2, okay? And then in your own personal study, you can discover, well, this is how the other ones are playing out for me, okay? Now, the reason that Stephen Kessler only summarized the 5 is because he could see that people were just getting overwhelmed by the 10, all right? And me being a practitioner of this work, I'm like, yeah, cool, give me some more. How many more templates that I can apply to someone to help them, and the little nuances that people have to find out the root cause of why their love life or their life map is not working efficiently, right? Something falls over. So let's begin, all right? Make sure that you're comfortable. I'm going to aim for an hour. It could be under that, but let's just see how we go. 10 love survival patterns blocking you. Which one are you? Why do so many high achievers thrive in life, yet lose themselves in love? The answer often lies in an outdated love map, an unconscious blueprint for relationships that was built for survival, not truth. These ingrained coping styles or love survival patterns formed in childhood to protect you, but now they could be blocking you from true intimacy. Each pattern lives in the nervous system, in the musculature, in the body, in the fascia, steering you toward familiar dynamics even when they hurt. The good news is, once you name and understand your pattern, you can rewrite your love map and life map and recalibrate your bodily systems for aligned, lasting love. And that's what I call your living signal. Your living signal. We help tune your living signal. In this practitioner level guide, we'll explore 5 core personality patterns identified by Reichian character analysis with updated user-friendly names, along with additional survival strategies like the compensated merging patterns and the passive feminine male and the narcissistic male. These patterns have both classic traits and modern expressions, especially in how they play out for high-performing individuals in romance. As you absorb this, as you take it in, notice which pattern resonates with your experience. Each one comes from a place of intelligence and strength originally, and with somatic healing and self-awareness and validation and true self-expression, each can be transformed from a survival strategy into a pathway to deeper love. And you might hear ex-partners in this, you might hear parents in this, you might hear friends in this. So let's dive in. All of this work will influence your entire family, friend system. Like it ripples out through all of it. The leaving pattern, also known as the schizoid or the dreamer. The leaving pattern, traditionally called the schizoid or unwanted child, is characterized by a deep instinct to escape when intimacy feels overwhelming. Often formed in the womb or infancy due to feeling unsafe or unwanted, this pattern's primary survival strategy is withdrawal. Pulling away physically or mentally to avoid pain. Psychologists now use gentler terms like dreamer or leaving pattern for this structure because the old label schizoid was overly harsh or pejorative. The dreamer coped with early life threat by retreating to an inner world, disassociating from a reality that felt hostile. As a result, they may grow up highly imaginative and self-sufficient, but prone to not being fully present. In relationships, someone with a strong leaving pattern can be hard to pin down. When closeness triggers their fear of engulfment or hurt, they instinctively limit contact or leave the situation emotionally, if not physically. They might shut down during conflict, go silent for days, or in extreme cases, literally flee. Suddenly taking a solo trip or disappearing when things get too intense. This is the partner who needs space whenever vulnerability arises. If you're a high-performing individual with this pattern, you may notice that while you're confident alone, intimacy sparks an urge to pull away to regain safety. It's a nervous system reflex. Better to be alone and safe than together and possibly hurt. Unfortunately, this avoidance leaves your partners feeling abandoned and you feeling secretly isolated. And the empowered transformation here, when presence comes online and you embody the pattern, like you know the pattern, you can interrupt the pattern, you know when you are in pattern and you know how to shift it. Recognizing that the leaving dreamer type actually has a gift for independence and creativity. When healed or integrated, you can bring your rich inner world into connection rather than using it to escape connection. Yeah? Grounding practices, body-based therapies, and gradually retraining your nervous system to stay present during discomfort help enormously. As you update your love map, you learn that it is safe to be here now. That closeness doesn't have to mean loss of self. Instead of vanishing when love gets real, you practice staying. Little by little, over time, the one who used to run can become the one who knows how to stand solidly in intimacy without leaving yourself or the relationship. And I have a matrix that I not always share, but if you want it, I can share it with you, that maps out how these patterns also overlay with attachment theory, because the leaving pattern can get diagnosed with avoidant or disorganized avoidant type traits. But really, you can't solve these issues through attachment theory. You need to use this methodology, the 5 personality patterns, and in the context of this video, the 10. The next one is the merging pattern, and these are in order as they are incurred in your developmental cycle. So the first one tends to be leaving, the second one is merging. Well, it's not tends to be, it is, because leaving is around birth. The merging pattern, also known as the oral or the needy child. The merging pattern originates from the classic oral character structure, sometimes called the needy child in modern terms. This pattern is all about seeking someone else to complete you. It forms when an infant's essential needs for nourishment or affection weren't constantly met. In early life, you felt deprived, like there was never enough love or attention, and so a core belief took root. You need to take this in. All right. I can't fill myself. I need someone else to do it for me. As one source describes, oral type individuals carry an inner sense of emptiness and lack, as if a void from early deprivation is still waiting to be filled. The merging pattern's survival strategy is to attach and cling to others, hoping to get the nurturance that was missing. They also have a whole other bunch of eclectic traits. For example, the merging pattern will overspeak. They will try and keep you in conversation because your presence with them, they're keeping you captive in their conversation, and it feels like a connection. It feels like you are filling them up by listening to them. All right, but the injury is so much deeper than that. Right? Have you got people like that in your life that just can talk and talk and talk and then talk underwater? And they merging pattern people tend to be attracted to rigid type people because the rigid carries all of their energy on the surface, and they don't like being improper to tell the person to stop talking and they need to go. So the rigid can feel trapped in conversation with a merging pattern person. It's quite hilarious when you actually think about it. In relationships, if you have a strong merging pattern, you will likely recognize the feeling of being too needy or codependent, even if outwardly you're successful and independent in other areas. In love, this shows up as constantly looking to your partner to fill your emotional needs. You might anxiously crave reassurance, feel not okay when alone, or over-focus on your partner's moods and responses. In conflict, get this is really important, the merging type immediately moves toward the other, apologizing profusely, saying, "I'm so sorry, I can't bear to upset you," or words to that effect. You abandon your own feelings and boundaries to keep the other close. Your nervous system panics at the thought of disconnection. So your impulse is to merge, to become one with your partner. For example, you might give up personal interests, agreeing to whatever maintains the bond. High achievers with this pattern often notice a Jekyll and Hyde effect, if you're familiar with Jekyll and Hyde. At work, you're confident, but with a love interest, you collapse into need, constantly seeking validation and fearing they'll pull away. This pattern can overwhelm partners and push them away, the very outcome you fear, creating a painful cycle. They really fear abandonment. Yeah, abandonment's the main one. And I'll talk about the compensated merging pattern, which is really important because it's a hybrid and one of the 10. It's also, Stephen Kessler also talks about it in the 5 personality patterns. I'm so glad that he did. Empowered transformation. The gift hidden in the merging pattern is a huge capacity for love and connection. You likely have a big heart and empathy in spades. The work is to learn to nurture yourself and trust that you are whole in the aligned attraction approach and the aligned life approach. This means updating your love map so your nervous system learns that you will not die if you're not fused with another. You practice tolerating healthy separateness through somatic exercises, inner child, reparenting, etc., while still staying connected. As you heal, the desperate edge softens into secure connection. You can bond deeply without losing yourself. Rather than a needy child, you become a fulfilled adult who can give and receive love mutually, no longer a bottomless cup, but overflowing from within. And all of these, the 5, actually have really exceptional business acumen skills. For example, the leaving pattern is exceptional at being intuitive and coming up with ideas. The merging pattern is exceptional at communicating. Sometimes they over-communicate, but they're the guy or the woman who can just talk about the product for ages, and they can build rapport really well. And the endurer has gifts, and the rigid has gifts, and the aggressive has gifts too. They all have gifts in the business world, and because if you feel successful in the business world based on these strategies, but then when you try and transfer them into a love map, and even trying to live your own life in your life map, you can really struggle to break out of the pattern, because the pattern is it's kept you alive, right? It's kept you alive until this point. And when you start tinkering with these things, the body goes, tripping? There's no way. There's a sit-chin coming. There's something's going to happen here if you keep poking around with how I've got here, how I've survived, right? The compensated merging pattern, the overgiver. The compensated merging pattern is like a twist on the regular merging oral pattern. It's a more disguised strategy, but still rooted in the same wound. Instead of directly leaning on others to fill your needs, you flip the script. You fill others' needs. Get this, allow this to land, please. You fill others' needs, hoping it will indirectly satisfy your own. This subtype often develops in people who learned early on, if I am useful, selfless, or perfect for others, then I'll be loved and never abandoned. It's the classic overgiver or caretaker role. On the surface, compensated merging types appear independent and even overly accommodating rather than needy. But underneath, the same fear of abandonment and feeling of emptiness drives their behavior. It's just managed through control by giving. For example, if I give you everything and become indispensable, you won't leave me. In some of the notes, merging looks to others to fill their own needs. Merging looks to others to fill their own needs. Compensated merging instead focuses on filling others' needs. It overgives as a way to secure love. In relationships, people with a compensated merging pattern are the ultimate pleasers and fixers in love. You might recognize this if you always become the caretaker for your partners, listening for hours to their problems, doing far more than your share, forgiving bad behavior, and generally self-sacrificing without asking for much in return. On the outside, you seem strong, low maintenance, even saint-like, but inside, there's often a growing pool of resentment and depletion. You give and secretly hope to finally be appreciated, needed, or loved back the way you crave. Because you rarely voice your own needs, you may even be out of touch with them. Yeah? Because you rarely voice your own needs, you may be out of touch with them. Partners can take you for granted. High-functioning professionals often fall into this category. You're so capable and caring that you handle everything, but in the process, you slowly abandon yourself, pouring from an empty cup. Over time, this can manifest as burnout or a blow-up argument when your suppressed needs finally erupt. For example, you might date someone struggling with issues so you can help them, which makes you feel valued, but eventually you feel unseen because your role has been only to give. The tragedy of the compensated merger is that despite being the giver, they still end up feeling unloved because they never truly receive and may not believe they deserve to. And this is a cycle that plays out in all of my work and tends to show up in the Telegram messaging, not always in a session. When someone starts voicing their needs, and it's almost like this other voice that they've never really, it's in atrophy. Atrophy meaning it's nearly dead. It's been starved of nutrients. Like it's like a muscle that's just not been nurtured. So when they start to, oh my God, that's what a need feels like in my body. It's like, yeah, that's what a need feels like. And there can be grief that shows up there, anger that shows up there, which is why I encourage people to use the messaging, use the Telegram, okay? It's a really important tool to share with me what's going on. Tell me, What are you feeling? What's your landscape today? What's your weather? What's your emotional weather landscape today? If you struggle to voice your needs and you tend to be disconnected from your feelings. So I encourage you to, give me a weather check of today for you. Oh, it's cloudy, it's overcast, a bit rainy, a bit thundery. It feels really dry today, it's super humid. And whatever those are for you, because once you start to build an emotional vocabulary, then you start to build a needs vocabulary and a wants vocabulary, right? That really changes your love life. Empowered transformation of the compensated merging. If you see yourself in the overgiver, it's time to turn some of that beautiful compassion, toward your own heart. Your capacity to support others is a strength. Now, you must learn receiving and self-devotion. In the True Love Protocol, we emphasize embodied boundaries and self-worth for this pattern, learning that no can be an act of love and that your needs matter just as much as everyone else's. As you practice voicing your feelings and allowing others to give to you, your relationships become more balanced. You'll find that you can still be generous and caring, but from a place of fullness rather than silent bargaining. No longer must you earn love through sacrifice. Instead, you stand in the truth that you are worthy of love for who you are, not what you do. This shift frees you from resentment and opens the door to partnerships where you feel cherished and supported in return. And sometimes, because I've got this pattern in me as well. Everyone's got them all. They all show up at some point. And then when you see them, you can be like, oh, I'm actually I can feel resentful after I said yes to that. Or I'm carrying some grudge, or I'm carrying some fantasy that, I hope she or he says something nice to me after this, or whatever it is. Your body will tell you when it's self-abandoning. When you listen, when you start ruminating of things, you could have self-abandoned in that moment, which is why these personality patterns are so critical to bridge the mind and body gap. Now, you can't mindset your way through your behavior. You need to know what these patterns are and feel them and be guided through it, which is why you're working with me. 4, the endurer pattern, masochistic. The enduring pattern comes from what Reich called the masochist character, a term that modern practitioners often soften to endurer. Just a side note, I remember when I was doing my mentorship for all this stuff, and we would joke about, you're such a masochist, right? In that mentorship, the pathology was very present. So when you start referring to each other as the type, you start building up that label inside of you, and it becomes a box, right? So that I left that community when I could see that was happening. You couldn't be seen beyond the box that you were originally diagnosed with. So I refer to the patterns as, and same with Stephen Kessler does it the same way, is that there's a rigid patterned person or an endurer patterned person. It's just a pattern, it's an overlay. And they're universal. This behavior is universal. I don't need to know your birth date. I don't need to know your Enneagram or any of those. No, I don't need you to sit a quiz. I can just look at your body and tell you and listen to your words that you're saying and know which pattern is in play. This pattern forms a bit later in early childhood, around toddler years, when a child's will is squished by control or shame. Unlike the previous patterns that avoid or cling, the endurer's strategy is to resist and withdraw inward. The wound here is often around invasion of the child's autonomy, maybe overbearing or controlling parent that left the child feeling helpless and humiliated. As a result, the person swallows their true feelings, anger, need, individuality, in order to avoid punishment or further shame. The endurer learned, I can't get my way, so I'll grit my teeth and bear it. How many of you are like that out there? I can't get my way, so I'll grit my teeth and bear it. They carry a sense that life is an endless burden to be carried. There can even be an unconscious pleasure in suffering, hence the old term masochist. But it's more that the person's comfort zone is struggle. Right? Their comfort zone is struggle. Even if it's unconscious, an unconscious comfort zone, that's struggle. They habitually turn their will against themselves, clamp down on self-expression, and passively absorb pain. Physically, this pattern often shows as a stocky or somewhat heavy build. The body literally armors by holding everything in, and then they tend to build up adipose tissue, so fat, wherever there's a fat reservoir in the body. So you find enduro people can be quite fat, like they put on weight because they're trying to create an even larger padding between reality and themselves. This survival strategy and love pattern is also the most susceptible to depression, and it struggles to, and they can really struggle to get out of it. So a lot of mainstream therapy cannot even touch this pattern, because in order to move through the pattern, you also need to move. So being able to move is part of the integration process for the endurer. So sitting still and talking can just put them in their heads, but they don't actually embody it. They also need to do things in their own time. So the endurer tends to be the most ridiculed in the coaching space and the therapy space, or being the most difficult client, even though there are no difficult clients, because they don't take the same leaps and bounds as like a rigid would or an aggressive type would, right? So the endurer patterned person needs a lot of compassion and a lot of space to be themselves, and that's where the repatterning happens. Yeah. In my 16-week work and my 12-month work, sometimes if someone has a lot of endurer tuned into them, the endurer pattern is quite high on their survival strategies. It's usually a year later until some of this stuff actually lands. They get a whole bunch of epiphanies. They can feel oh my God, I can change this. It feels great, cool. But it's not until maybe a year later, sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's longer, that, oh my God, John, I finally get it. Yeah, because you need to choose it. The endurer needs to choose in their own timing what their yes is and what their no is. So in relationships, someone with an enduring pattern tends to lose themselves by way of self-sabotage and silent suffering. If this is you, you might stay in unhappy or even toxic relationships far too long. And a side note here, you might also stay in jobs too long, tolerating mistreatment or lack of fulfillment without protest. You may feel you don't have a right to voice your anger, so you suppress it, but it leaks out in other ways. Endurers often communicate through passive resistance or complaints rather than direct requests. For example, try this one out. Rather than saying, I need more love and respect from you, an endurer might sigh and say, it's fine, I know nothing ever changes, I'll deal with it, or it is what it is, or, one of those like catchphrases. Life is a struggle. Story of my life. While internally seething or feeling hurt, there is a tendency to portray yourself as a martyr of sorts, talking about how much you put up with, how you do everything for your partner, or how relationships lock you in a prison of obligation. Indeed, the masochist endurer often does feel trapped, yet finds a strange safety in that trap. I'm going to read that again. Indeed, the masochist endurer often does feel trapped, yet finds a strange safety in that trap. You might unconsciously attract partners who are domineering or needy, so you have an excuse to stay small and needed. Or you create scenarios where your freedom is limited. High-performing individuals with this pattern experience a stark contrast. In public life, you may be responsible and even powerful, but in love, you shrink, contract, enduring dynamics that don't truly make you happy. You lose yourself by giving up your power, then stew in resentment. This pattern can smother the joy out of relationships as everything becomes heavy, and no amount of giving pleases the endurer, since the real need to express their true self remains unspoken. Empowered transformation. On the other side of this, the endurer's gift when healed is depth of loyalty, patience, and the capacity to support. You likely have great strength and tenacity. Now it's about freeing that strength for your own life instead of against it. Breaking out of this survival pattern means practicing speaking your truth and allowing conflict when necessary. A big step for endurers is learning that expressing anger or refusing unfairness will not destroy the world. It will actually set you free. In somatic terms, this often involves releasing long-held tension in the body through movement, voice, or breath work. Years of swallowing feelings can literally be unwound. As you gradually assert yourself, you teach your nervous system that it's safe to come out of hiding. The true you does deserve to take up space. In love, this transformation is profound. Instead of silently carrying the weight of the relationship, you start sharing it. You stop playing victim of circumstance and start co-creating the relationships you want. The heaviness lifts, making room for real intimacy and joy. Remember, you don't have to earn love by suffering. You are allowed to be happy, to have preferences, and to sometimes say no or enough. When an endurer claims their inner authority, their devotion and care can finally flow from confidence rather than duty. And that creates the kind of partnership where both people thrive. It also adds a lot of vitality into the relationship too, because all the heaviness that the endurer can holds incredible life force. Like, it takes a lot of energy to hold down or hold in life force and vitality, which is why endurers tend to get sick. They carry all kinds of bizarre illnesses because they're holding in all their feelings, right? And to eat their feelings as well. Like, not only do they swallow, because when you're in session with me, I pay attention to when you swallow. I can either hear it or see it. So what did you swallow just then? That's what this work does. I can track your body. I can see what's going on. The aggressive pattern, psychopath character, the controller or leader.